So welcome. It's so good to see everyone. And I just want to show you we have a new format to our PowerPoints, which is the sky is not the limit. This is an incentive idea of our commissioner. She had Dr. Harris come. He is a scientist, surgeon, and a former NASA astronaut. He came and did a kickoff for all the superintendents, and it was very inspirational. And we have adjusted all of our PowerPoints to reflect the sky is not the limit. So I just wanted to point that out to all of you.
Melissa, I just wanted to say I happened to see it on public television just by accident, and it was amazing.
Wasn't he great?
He was so inspirational, like you said. I just loved hearing him talk, and I don't know if the recording's available, but I would encourage people to tune in if they can listen to it. It's great.
Yeah, I thought the same. I saw Dr. Bowman just shake her head too. I know that Fran was there. Did you want to add anything, or what is?
Yeah, I actually brought up some of his remarks at my convocation because our focus is equity, and he spoke to, his challenging upbringing, but yet still was able to achieve an amazing amount of accomplishments. So yes, I couldn't agree more that it was a phenomenal speaker.
Yeah, I mean, he just captured me completely. He was phenomenal. And the good news is he may be doing some work with all of us in the state. So we're looking forward to that.
Oh, neat. That's wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for sharing. So just as a reminder, we are in a virtual space. And of course, Stephen's already showing his emotion icons that he's notorious for doing. So thank you for that. What I would like to do is take this moment to do a roll call. So I'm going to ask Leslie Navarrete if she could please do a roll call.
Okay, good afternoon. Dr. Maureen Burmett.
She raised her hand and said here.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Here.
Dr. Michael Coyne.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's great to be here.
Dr. Margie Gillis.
Here.
Kimberly Healy.
Here.
Stephen Hernandez.
Hi Leslie, Steve Hernandez here.
Hey. Dr. Melissa Jenkins.
Present.
Christina Kingsbury. Dr. Stephanie Lockhart. I know Lisa Thomas will be joining us later on. So should I mark her present?
I would not yet until she comes.
Okay.
But she did kindly email to inform us that she would be later due to another meeting.
Christina Tights. Roll call completed.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to take this time now to do an acceptance of the minutes. I know that all of you were able to access those. Are there any edits, questions, anything about those? All right, so we will say that they have been accepted. So thank you so much for all of that. At our last meeting, you all made a request that we go over the legislation again. And what I've done is created a PowerPoint to go over the various pieces of the legislation to show you what has been accomplished to date, what still has to be accomplished. And then also there continues to be a question from members about the difference between the intensive reading instruction program, the strategy, and the plan. So I've also taken some slides and time to break those down as well. Oh, and Lisa is here, so perfect. All right, Lisa, welcome. So what I'll do now is I'll start with doing that review, and obviously along the way, if you have questions, comments, don't hesitate to share. I am going to be sharing my PowerPoint, so if I miss you, please just speak out. I may not be able to watch if you raise your hand while also going through the PowerPoint. So here we go. So first, what I've done here is list out the responsibilities for the center. And then next I've listed, which you'll see soon, the responsibility for all districts and then just for alliance districts. So here you can see that the center is responsible for, as you all know, compiling that list of reading assessments. And in October, we will have Dr. Joanne White come to speak to us more about the reading assessments. You know about the review and the approval of at least 5 reading curricula programs, and you've been instrumental in that work, including consulting with the documents, giving your opinions on the documents that went out regarding the core process, serving as reviewers and advisors to the process along the way. So once again, big shout out, could not and cannot do it without you. We are finalizing those details and documents, and we'll be notifying districts for that September 30th date. That is our goal. Also, overseeing the intensive reading instruction program. That's something that Dr. Coyne spoke about at, I believe it was our last meeting or 2 meetings ago now. I apologize for which meeting it was, but I believe it was the last meeting. So he spoke about what is that intensive reading instruction program and what supports have been provided to alliance districts previously. This year, we're going to continue our support and focusing on New Haven and Hartford, Bridgeport, Middletown, Waterbury, Norwalk, East Haven, Derby, Stamford. I apologize if I've missed anybody, but those are some of the districts that we will continue to be supporting. We're also developing an intensive reading intervention strategy. Now, this strategy I will also be bringing to all of you in October for you to review and give feedback, and consulting with you on that, as well as we as a council have determined that the next bullet of develop and implement a statewide reading plan is something that we are working on here. The center has to know what programs that each of the districts have or will be putting into place, and then publicly reporting those out. So that's another piece that will have to be done by September 1st of 2023. After that, the center will be responsible for conducting reviews, random reviews of districts to see what approved programs are in place and the reading assessments. Some more that do not have specific dates attached is the center will be providing supports to districts, schools, boards of education, will be providing professional learning, family engagement, technical assistance, coaching, etc. The center will be serving as a collaborative center for institutions of higher education and making available to the teacher prep programs, those programs and curricula that were approved, and also engaging literacy coaches to provide professional learning. So these are all things that the center are required to be doing or is required to be doing as a result of this legislation that is called the Right to Read Act. So when you hear Right to Read Act, this is the act to which it is referring. Now what I'll do is I'll talk about the responsibilities for the districts and alliance districts, and then I'll pause if any of you have questions. Because I don't see right now any hands up or any microphones that were unmuted. So what do all, oh, I'm sorry, Fran, go ahead.
I just have a question or a comment.
Sure.
In your earlier slide, it talks about the 5, at least 5 programs.
Oops.
that are, okay, at least 5 reading curricula / programs. What concerns me, and I know that that's from the legislation, what concerns me is that curricula, are we looking at programs as curricula? That's one thing. You know, later
Right.
later you have in your last slide that you just showed, reading curricula and or programs. That's a very important distinction.
Correct. And this council in the very beginning was adamant that curricula is very different than programs. And because of that, we adjusted all of those documents that were sent out around this core program. Some of the programs that we reviewed listed themselves as curricula. Some called themselves programs. I agree that there is a lot of confusion around that, and we will be clarifying that when these go out, to say that curricula is one thing, programs are another, programs support the curricula here. But you're right, the legislation said that, so that's why I pulled this right from the legislation.
Exactly, but it is very confusing to districts and can be very misleading when, you know, because I took over in Bridgeport when a program was considered curriculum, and that's you know, a very difficult piece.
Well, and I think too, when Dr. Coyne spoke the last time, you know, he made some very eloquent points about, you know, it's great when you have programs in place, and yet you also need, right? So there are other things that you need, not only a program. And I don't know, Dr. Coyne, do you want to say what you say so well?
Before Dr. Coyne says it,
sure.
if I can just say with my distinction, in my book,
Yes.
And it's you have a curriculum, a reading curriculum for grades K to 3 that says this is what kids need to know and be able to do. It's made up of strategies. Your resources are your program. That's where I come from, but you know, I'm not sure if there's different thinking on this.
I would say that everyone who reviewed, as well as during the process, echoes exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
but thank you for bringing it up.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, we need to bring it up again and again and again, because you know, how many times do we say that people don't hear things the first time, right? So we need to bring this up again and again and again so that people continue to hear that there's a difference. And Dr. Coyne, did you want to add around?
Oh, I was just going to reinforce the conversation, which is, you know, any kind of program or intervention or assessment is just a tool to, you know, support students reach, you know, agreed upon goals and outcomes that, you know, that make up the curriculum. I mean, I think to me, what's really important is that if there's a curriculum that kind of just lives independently somewhere in a desk drawer that's not, and that core program is not aligned with that curriculum, then those things, you know, sort of are working in opposition. So I think, you know, the goal for a core program is to really, you know, align with the district's curriculum. And just one more thing is that, you know, there are fairly similar expectations and developmental outcomes that we expect for developing readers that are consistent. So that I think, although districts should be developing their own curriculum, there's pretty broad or pretty specific guidance about what kids should know and be able to do at different grade levels that should be consistent across districts, because everybody learns to read similarly. So, you know, there should be there shouldn't be so much variability around, what's expected at the end of first grade in some districts and in other districts. And, one good thing about core programs is that they have been designed with curricula in mind, so that they, for the most part, good core programs align pretty well with the kind of expectations that we have for kids at different grade levels. But that doesn't mean that schools and districts shouldn't have a really strong idea of what their curriculum goals and outcomes are for their students. That's a long way of saying that I agree with Fran.
Thank you so much. Lisa?
Thanks. For some reason, I'm not finding the chat feature on my screen today, or I would have put this in the chat. But I also agree with Fran. And I just want to say, what we're not mentioning, or I don't think I'm hearing mentioning, is that Connecticut does have a Connecticut Common Core standards that we're supposed to be teaching towards. And so we do have specific should children know and be able to do by the end of each grade level. And we benchmark assess that throughout the year. So that's really the guidance, right, that we're following. And then we build curriculum around that. And our programs that we use, or our resources we use, should help us to deliver that curriculum. Kind of makes me think of backwards design.
Correct. And then just to piggyback on that, it is a law that students who are receiving high school credit, the schools must be using the Connecticut core standards for those courses. So exactly like you're saying, using those standards as the indicator of what students should be able to know, understand, do by the end. So thank you all. And Leslie will be letting people in, so don't worry if you're seeing people pop up. She's our greeter at the door today. All right, so then what, per legislation, are all of the local and regional boards of education responsible for doing? So as a result of this legislation, I shared what the center needs to be doing. The local and regional boards of education, which includes our charter schools, they must be reporting and implementing, right, Connecticut's approved curricula and or programs. Now, there will be an option or an opportunity for them to ask for a one-year extension and or asking for a waiver. Also, what they must be doing is using an approved universal K-3 screening assessment. And once again, Joanne will be coming to our next meeting and speaking more about those. But this is what the legislation says, the two things that all districts must now be doing. I would like to, at this time, gather some thoughts around the waiver. Now, it is legislated that the waiver includes 3 different items. 1, the district must show evidence that it is a scientifically based, research aligned program or curricula, that they must use data from the universal screening reading assessments for K-3 and disaggregate those data by a variety of groupings. And then they also must create strategies as to how they will be attacking is the only word I can think of, but that seems a little aggressive. How they'll be dealing with the gaps, the achievement gaps that they're seeing with these universal data over the last few years, and working in that way. So I just wanted to pause for a moment and see if you have thoughts around the waiver and what is your thinking of such. And as I often do, I'm going to be taking notes as well as Leslie. So any thoughts on the waiver? I see Fran's hand is up, and also Maureen. So Fran and then Maureen, please.
I have 2 things. One is not exactly on the waiver, but again, in that first bullet, report and implement Connecticut's pre-K to grade 3 core comprehensive reading curricula and or programs. So is there we don't have a core reading curricula, do we?
Well, next week is when we're aiming to release the curricula and or programs that were approved as meeting expectations. So right now, currently, those have not been released or solidified. However, like I said, some of the ones that we looked at called themselves a curricula or a curriculum. Others called themselves a program. So
Are they all
if you can think of a better way to phrase that, I am totally open to it. You can send it to me. You can shout it out, whatever you
It's
think.
just very confusing because
Okay.
when I reviewed, what I reviewed were programs. They weren't curricula. Do you know
Okay.
what I mean? And
Mhm.
and so you know, I think what you're releasing are, you know, commercial programs, correct? Are there any? I mean, I'm just guessing that they're commercial programs. They're not really curricula. That's where I get confused. On the waiver piece, I am pleased to hear that there is the allowance for a 1-year extension, because I was trying to figure out how districts would be able to abide by this legislation and get it into their budget. I'm thinking if they received the names of these, I'm just going to call them programs, by the end of September and needed to change their program to be in compliance, or submit a waiver. You know, most budgets are done by December. Getting a waiver approved or vetting a new program and deciding which one is best suited to your district and getting it into a budget is a lot longer than 2 months. So I'm happy to hear that there is the ability to apply for a 1-year extension, which would bring us to July of 2024, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. No, thank you. And you reminded me too that the commissioner had shared we are working on ways of which to provide some funding to districts to assist them with this lift. So we're looking into that and seeing how we can help districts.
Okay, that's
And then I think Maureen, Lisa, and then Stephen.
Thank you. And I apologize if this has already been discussed today. I don't recall it though. Fran and I, when we attend meetings with superintendents, this is a hot topic.
Mhm.
And there's been a lot of questions around the waiver. There's been a lot of questions around, is the only mechanism for those programs that are going to be approved by the state or the committee of some sort, not this committee, but the reading folks, is the sole way they're doing that through that rating system that we all use when we did our individual program ratings, or are there other factors that will play into the approval?
Yes.
Okay, so could you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So the process is as such, and this is what the reviewers were doing as well. So we had, as you know, 16 people who were reviewing the various products that were coming in from districts and from publishers. Part of that process was also to see if they had been reviewed, these products or whatever was submitted, if they were reviewed by other evidence-based sources, such as Colorado, they had a review process. Massachusetts, with Curate, they had a review process. And then Ed Reports, which looks through everything through that evidence-based lens. So we were really trying to triangulate those data of not only having Connecticut experts, CSDE employees, and council members. So all of us as experts and educators looking at these products, but also then triangulating those data with these other research-based sources. Oh, okay, thank you, Stephen.
And then just a quick, oh, I'm sorry, you're
Mhm.
still going?
No, I was going to ask if there was questions about that. That's all
Yep.
I was going to say.
A follow-up to that would be
Sure.
for the waiver process, and I don't know how flushed out it is, but like I said, superintendents across the land are eager to see it. Will it also require a superintendent to go through some sort of rigorous assessment of whatever program they suggest that they want to have approved or waived? There is concern about how detailed and lengthy that process might be.
So yes, it is detailed in the legislation. I just kind of summarized it here as to the 3 parts. But yes, they do have to prove, just like we had with the core reading process. So they will have to designate what program or curricula, how does it align to the various indicators that we had when we were doing the review process. So I would recommend that they look at the documents we have currently posted for the core review process to start wrapping their head around, what could be asked there, as well as, like I said, they need to be looking at their data that they've collected over the last few years for K-3 students using one of the approved assessments through the years. So looking at, what assessment were they using, what data were collected, and then what strategies would be put in place as a result of looking at the data and seeing where the achievement gaps are. Is that was helpful? Okay, good. And then anything else, Maureen? Yeah, okay.
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, sure. Lisa?
My concern has been a little bit addressed, but I'm just going to talk from under a different hat, not my teacher hat, but my council chairwoman hat, who is responsible for moving a budget through to an affirmative vote, which is incredibly difficult right now, no matter where you live, but especially in our smaller towns. So it is concerning to me that this legislation went forward without funding behind it. And I'm glad that it's going to be revisited and there will be conversation around helping some towns, but that's not enough. And that concerns me about the success of this program. So just 2 cents on that. It's very challenging right now, and we're doing the best we can to protect the bare minimum in our school budgets.
Thank you for sharing. Is there anybody else who wants to share their thoughts? Okay, then I'm going to move on. We talked about the center's responsibilities, roles and responsibilities under the legislation. We've talked about all of the local and regional boards of education, which include, like I said, the charter schools. Now what we'll do is we'll transition over to the alliance districts, because there is some additional information that is required for alliance districts to do. Alliance districts must consult with the center, as you can see, about providing supplemental reading instruction, ensuring that they have reading remediation plans developed by a reading interventionist for each of the K-3 students they have enrolled in the elementary schools. They must be ensuring that the principal of each is notifying each of the parent guardians of the K-3 students who have been identified as below in proficiency. So reaching out to those families and guardians, and also consulting with the center to provide the K-3 students below proficiency with intensive summer school reading programming. So, we have been doing this through the work that that Dr. Coyne mentioned the last time we met together with our Connecticut literacy model work and supporting alliance districts around that. This is something that they have to be asking for. So those districts, like I said, we've been working with and supporting, have really reached out and embraced the work. Moving on to now. Lisa, do you have a question or is your hand up from before? Okay. I just wanted to do, oh, I'm sorry, Fran, you too. Do you have your hand up?
I do. I'm sorry.
Sure.
If you go back there,
Sure.
on the reading interventionists, are you assuming that every district will have reading interventionists in every school?
I'm just reading from the legislation. To be honest, I'm not making any assumptions. The legislation talks about how a reading interventionist has to make the reading plans. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, but it also says they have to provide supplemental reading instruction during the regular school hours. So it would seem to say that you need an interventionist in every school, at least one that can do that. And I wondered, I'm concerned in that, I know that some districts do not have the funding to provide a reading interventionist in every school, even though they need it terribly. I also wonder whether there are certification requirements around that, because they're pretty hard to find right now. And my third wondering is, what do they do during this staff shortage time? And none of that is as child-centered as I'd like it to sound, because the fact of the matter is, we're at a horrible loss in some of the cities without enough interventionists in reading, and I know that. And so it really concerns me, and I think it's fine to put it in writing. And I know what the legislature did, but the reality is, what do you do if you can't find them or you can't afford them?
I think those are wonderful questions. And once again, I'm just reporting out on the legislation, and then we're having a conversation as to, right?
I know, and I don't mean to be difficult on you. I just need to, I think the commission needs to understand where, things may be. And, I'm not speaking for every district, but I do know that there are deficiencies in that area.
Stephen, I see that your hand is raised.
Thank you. And I think what you're hearing, Melissa, is a real sense of urgency that is shared by many of us on this screen. And it's the sense of urgency of, regardless of how many of these resources we put into place, without proper resourcing where it's most needed, then children aren't getting access to this vital methodology of learning to read. And that's, we want you to know that we have your back as you report back and say, we need targeted resources for those districts that are pyramid upside down, so many children not being able to read at grade level.
And I thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's nice to know that I do have such an amazing crew having my back and sharing this information and feeling comfortable enough to share this information, so that when I or any of us are in those spaces, we can share what bubbles up at these meetings, because I know we all represent more than the person we are sitting here, right? We have people behind us that we're representing here whose voices need to be heard. So thank you. Thank you all for this. Once again, I mean, we always have amazing conversations and I appreciate it. All right, so what I'd like to do now is there was confusion around these terms, right, of program, plan, strategy. So what I've done is I've taken those words and tried to define each one. So when you read the legislation, you'll see that K-3 intensive reading instruction programs and supports need to be offered to Alliance districts. So once again, this is the Alliance districts that request basically some supports in these areas, but it's assessing the capacity and the levels. So supporting them, this would be the program and the supports, providing supports that assist districts in looking at their assessment data, looking at the knowledge of their staff around the science of reading, developing plans, and then assisting with what is the best fit for a universal assessment? What is the best fit for the program? What strategies should be used? What supplemental reading instruction should occur? And then supporting what goes on in that intensive summer school, including training of teachers, which once again, we have been doing at the state, and in a much smaller basis, based on funds, right? Quite honestly, based on funds, and working with UConn and Literacy How and Hill for Literacy. Also providing tiered supports. That's in the legislation as well. So tier 1, we must be offering online professional learning modules. As many of you know, ReadCon started both as in-person and online, and it transitioned to online modules and supports and coaching. Tier 2, which is the Connecticut literacy model that Dr. Coyne spoke about before, which is really this 2-year targeted literacy training, professional learning, and getting external coaching supports. And then tier 3, which also to this point has been the Connecticut literacy model, which is multi-year, not only a 2-year, but a multi-year investment in the districts. So for example, we've been working very closely with Hartford and New Haven and supporting them through the years. So that is what the program or the supports are. So what supports need to be offered? This is the strategy. Now, this is something that we've created, and then yes, Margie, I'll call on you. This strategy is something that we've created and we would like to share. I would like to share the next time we meet together. So you can look at what is a strategy. Now this shall include and shall outline. Once again, I pulled from the legislation. This strategy shall include assessments, reading research, external coaches, reading interventionists, and training teachers and administrators. It shall outline how to use those data or the use of data, how leaders need to be developed, the family communication, the training for teachers and leaders, and the student progress reports. Then it's the strategy that is utilized in the program, the supports, and then our next phase. Margie. Dr. Gillis.
Yep. Sorry to interrupt your flow there, Melissa.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, if you could go back to the prior slide, that would be great. Thank you. So,
sure.
Yeah, so I appreciate you outlining all of this language and the information that's in the bill, and this is a great exercise for us to kind of revisit this legislation because it has so much information and it's packed with a whole bunch of things that are going to be part of the legislation and implementation of this. So one thing that jumped out at me, obviously because of the work that we do, is this idea of trying to figure out where teachers are. So the first bullet, you mentioned assessing capacity and levels. And I think that's extremely important. And of course, we have assessments that are meant to do that. We did have, a plan for figuring out what teachers' knowledge of the science of reading was or is, right? And, that without going into just my opinion about how that all kind of rolled out. Maybe we haven't done that for a while. When was the last time we administered that really survey?
That was 2 years ago. So we're right on track, and it's due again this year.
So, right. So 2 years ago, and I don't know because I'm not a district leader, but I don't know if that's informing as it was meant to do, just professional development for teachers, because I don't think anyone on this council would disagree that that's the difference maker, right? If we want children to learn to read, we have to give them we have to give teachers the right resources to do their jobs, but that goes beyond giving them the materials. It really is providing professional development. And I know you've mentioned that here in your tiered supports, teachers have access to professional development, but how do we know if they're learning what they've been, you know what I mean? That's just a big question that I keep coming back to.
So for those of you who may not know what Margie is referring to, it is legislated that every other year that teachers K-3 take a reading survey. This is not an assessment. It is not aligned to their evaluations. It's simply to gather information on their knowledge of the science of reading. And then those data are used by the teacher's supervisor. And I can't recall the exact wording of the language. I believe it says something like supervisor of professional learning, but I would have to look that up. But it is used by that person to assist the teacher with their own professional learning around the science of reading. And that's one of the reasons that we offered ReadCon, was to assist districts with having free professional learning for teachers on the science of reading and supporting teachers in that way. We are due again to have the reading survey go out this school year. So just giving everyone a heads up around that. We have been working with Pearson. Years ago, prior to me being at the state, there was a group of people who worked with Pearson to develop this reading survey, and it aligned to the reading test that is legislated that teachers must pass for them to teach in Connecticut. So we're in conversations currently around the survey and what this survey shall be looking like for this year and for the following years. So that's what Margie's talking about, with the intent of those data helping teachers in knowing what are their strengths and what are their challenges around reading instruction. Dr. Jenkins.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I wanted to follow up just to seek some clarity around the Foundations of Reading survey for Alliance School Districts. Bridgeport is an Alliance School District, and I believe the survey has been administered at least 3 times in the 8 years that I've been at the district level. And it was my understanding from a very strong union voice that the only stakeholders looking at the science of reading results would be a superintendent, the director of literacy, and the teacher. So I guess I would love to receive clarity around it, because it's never been shared with me that even a principal should see school level results or a literacy staff person seeing another staff person's results.
Yeah.
The data has been used to make broad-based professional learning decisions. So PD has been provided, but I'm just letting you know that whenever that survey comes out, it's always been communicated to me that the only eyes that should see it are upper level leadership in the individual teacher. So I would be grateful for more information.
All right, I'm going to, I mean, obviously you can see this, I'll stop sharing, but I'm going to go to our website where it is spelled out exactly who can see this information, because it is not FOIable information, it is private information. And that was established and in the law as well, that it is not FOIable and only the teacher. And now I want to say it's the supervisor of professional learning. So if you could give me 1 minute just to find that here, and I can show you where it is so everyone can access that.
While you're looking for that, Melissa, I want to thank you for weighing in a little bit, Dr. Jenkins, because as I said, I'm not in a district. I'm external, and I know that we had lengthy conversations years ago about the benefit of having this information for principals, like you said, and other folks who really are trying to give teachers the knowledge and experience that they need. And so it certainly was intended to do good things. And I'm not sure how it's all rolled out by district. So I thank you for sharing your thoughts.
No, I've always taken it very seriously, the rollout. I've already reached out to Joanne in August, preparing for this year. Are we administering this assessment? I have data across 3 years to see if there's any, movement by school, for the district, by subtest. We've looked at it at the district level and individual teachers, but I've never dropped it down to the school leader. Because the data sets are so small, they would be able to figure out who the individual teachers are. When our first year, so many teachers needed to take it because we had an older population of teachers who had not taken the Foundations of Reading test. The anonymity, the confidentiality was greater, but the subset of teachers taking it, I if I were a principal, I would know, because we have so many new teachers in Bridgeport.
Right, and right. So here is the law. So section 10-145R, survey on reading instruction. It says right here, the results of such survey shall be confidential. As I said, shall not be included in any summative ratings for performance evaluations. They're not subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act, and they shall be distributed to such certified individual and the supervisor of such certified individual who's responsible for designing and facilitating the program of professional development. That's it.
So that's me. Because we don't have it site-based professional development by a principal.
And then here on our page, when going to the Department of Education, K-12, academics, literacy, to the Foundations of Reading survey, we have here information from the previous one. But it is helpful information here with FAQs. How will my results be used? And that is a cost that we take on here at the State Department. So that is not a cost for the teachers, as well as providing the no-cost professional learning for districts if they want to partake of that through ReadCon. So,
Melissa, last question, not to be answered here. Has the State Department looked statistically at the body of teachers that are new versus teachers who have been teaching longer than the test has been administered? Because I'm curious this year to see how many teachers still need to take the survey, and what would be next steps if all teachers teaching in the ranks don't need the survey once everybody has the test under their belt. Just wondering if there's any forecast.
So what Dr. Jenkins is referring to is we had conversations years ago, and it was just determined that those teachers who took the reading test and are currently teaching would not have to take the survey because they have already shown that they have this body of knowledge and are capable of teaching reading. So yes, every time we administer the survey, we have to get data on every single teacher. We do not look at, and the data, I do not mean any data from the survey. We never, ever, ever look at teachers' survey data. What we get at the state is the name of the teacher, the school in which they are, and the grade they teach. Then we confirm that with the reading survey liaison, because as you know, there's a lot of movement. And because last year teacher A taught kindergarten, they could this year be teaching 5th grade and no longer have to take the survey. So there's a lot of data involved. And yes, we know exactly who needs to take it. And we get the data from Pearson saying when people took it, but we do not get the data on their results or any information about them other than they took the survey, because they complete it and then we get notified that so many people completed the survey on this day or this day or this day. A lot of data. A lot of teachers. And that was the whole purpose too, just like you're saying. I mean, there are some buildings that only have a few teachers and you could pinpoint the data to them. And that was never, ever, ever the intent, ever. So I hope I clarified some of those things. All right, then I'm gonna whip up.
Melissa, if I
Yes.
may, not to wake a sleeping horse, but part of that relationship that you described, right, in the original legislation related to the survey was really, as you said, the relationship between the person that's empowered to design the professional development for the teacher that may need help. And, you know, that relationship certainly succeeds where there is a professional development coordinator, or where that professional development coordinator is resourced to be able to provide that professional development to the teacher, and where the teacher feels that they're benefiting from it. That relationship fails when those elements aren't there. And so it's so important that we consider, not only that we look back at that part of the law and think to ourselves, is it still doing what we thought it was going to do? Did we live up to our end of the bargain when we said, look, teachers, we're only doing this to support you? We meant it, by the way. That's why all those protections for the teacher are in place. But did we then turn around and support teachers in the way that we promised? I don't know that we have. And I think it's important to revisit that part of the law for that purpose.
Yeah, thank you so much. So eloquent as always. It's interesting, you know, listening to both Fran and now Stephen saying, when you read the legislation, it does come across, and that's what I just simply took the words and put them here, and you're putting the humans behind it, right? You're putting the kids behind it, the teachers behind it, and the intent behind it, which is to support the teachers and kids. So thank you for that too. Margie?
No, I just wanted to thank Stephen for, stating what is really important for all of us to think about. And like you said, maybe we revisit it because it doesn't sound like it's doing what it was meant to do. Unfortunately, maybe there's another way to address the issues. And this would be a good thing, I think, for the center to consider. I mean, to me, we've talked about the importance of providing professional development supports to districts. That's certainly a big role that the center will be playing, and professional development is probably one of the biggest challenges that districts face. So yeah, I would love to see us revisit that.
Fran?
I just want to reinforce that I think that is really incredibly important. It's what we do with the results. It's not just collecting the results. That's important. And I would also add, that doesn't come up too often, but I can tell you my frustration sometimes, because I was with Melissa in Bridgeport. My frustration is that many of the teachers are coming out of pre-service without the prerequisite skills to hit the road running in teaching the science of reading in K-3. And I would hope that when they're doing the Ed TPA or whatever it is that they are being assessed on, that's part of the assessment. And we haven't talked about that a lot here. We've talked about districts, and we've talked about professional development, and we've talked about the teachers on the ground. And I agree that is important, but there is the other element of pre-service, and determining that pre-service is also completely bought into the science of reading. I know some are. I'm sure Michael Coyne and UConn is bought into that, but I'm not sure everybody is.
Well, and even if, sorry, I'm
No, go
supposed
ahead.
to raise my hand. No,
No, go ahead, please.
No, well, I was just going to say, even, Mike, I know Mike's work is excellent, but Mike isn't, not every professor at UConn, I'm sure you would agree with this, Mike, is and has embraced the science. So there has to be a way, and this is another topic for another day probably, but how do we ensure that professors in these programs have the requisite knowledge to teach this content? It's a really important question, I think.
I agree.
Well, and I think too, when we go back, and of course, I'll be sharing these slides, we'll be posting them, but, it is one of the center's roles or responsibilities to be working with higher education. And it does say about the programs and curricula, but I have to tell you already, some really positive things have developed. I've had universities and colleges in Connecticut reaching out to me, so excited about rallying around the science of reading. And Southern, we've met multiple times, obviously UConn, St. Joe's, Sacred Heart. We have universities and colleges, and just because they haven't reached out to me yet doesn't mean they're not excited. But these are people who have emailed me, called me, we've met, we're talking about coming together, forming some sort of a group. So already positive things have occurred as a result of just that one line in this piece of legislation.
That's wonderful to hear. That's great.
Yep. So, I'll keep you posted. Right now, they're more informal conversations to kind of assess what are their thoughts, what should next steps be, kind of taking little bites of the whale versus trying to swallow the whole whale, especially as I'm currently the only employee of the center. So, trying to really balance everything. But like I said, it is clear that these are conversations that are occurring across Connecticut in our universities and our colleges. So it's very exciting. All right, I'm going to go back here to do as you asked. I want to share having a bit of a lag. There we go. All right. So once again, the legislation here talking about alliance districts depends upon the Alliance districts requesting, as well as allocations and how much money we have, always money, right? How much money we have to carry out the expectations of the law. So then what I talked about was what was the strategy? So we talked about the program and supports. Now we're talking about the strategy that's mentioned. The program having to use this strategy. The strategy must include these things here on the left, but shall outline the others, which I already talked about. At our next meeting, I'd like to share that strategy with you. That's in a draft form, and get your feedback on that so we can move forward with that piece. Also, is this coordinated K-3 statewide reading plan. Now, this is what you all decided to do as a result of the council having to have goals. But you've broadened it. So it's now a pre-K-12 or a birth to 12 statewide reading plan, including our multi-gen. So this is something that we will start working even more on after you've seen the strategy and then moving forward with this. So there's the program or supports that have to be provided through the legislation to the Alliance districts. There is the strategy that has to be available to all districts. Oop. And then the plan. All right, any questions? Because I can't really see if you have questions right now. If you do, feel free to just speak out. All right, then I'm moving to the next slide. Okay, so then what I've done here is I've taken the legislated mandates and I've put them into a chart form, and I want you to see what has been developed already. We had an older strategy that, like I said, we've revised and updated, and I want to be sharing with you at our next meeting. So that's a check there. The next would be having the universal K-3 reading assessments. Those went before the board in June, and guidance is being developed and will be provided prior to this January date. As you know, not here, but in the legislation, it was legislated that a center be created, and that obviously was accomplished, as well as having the council. So that was accomplished as well. Providing supports to districts, we're doing that through our ReadCon and our Connecticut literacy model work currently. Overseeing this intensive reading instruction program, that too, like I said, has been ongoing and started for this year. We've engaged the literacy coaches to provide professional learning, once again on a smaller scale due to the funding, but that will be getting larger with this ARPA funds, or yes, the ARPA funds. We all, with the council, are in the process of developing and implementing a statewide reading plan. And also we are just so close to having those reading curricula / and/or programs being finalized. After that, we shall receive, oops, sorry, my error. After that, these are the things that have not yet been done, as they're hinging upon the others. So by September 1st, we will have to have that list of districts, and if they're doing the program or the waiver or asking for a year extension, conducting those random reviews, serving as a collaborative center. Like I said, that work has started, but it has been informal. Making available to the teachers, teacher prep, the curricula and our programs, and then also reviewing and publicly reporting on progress made by the teacher prep programs. So, I mean, I think that's pretty good. In the last few months, we've been cranking along, and I could not obviously do it without your support, guidance, and constant consultation. So deep, deep, deep appreciation on my part as I serve as the interim. Any questions so far? Lisa? And then I
just to thank you right back to you for covering this as the interim person. You've taken on a lot of additional work and are providing great information. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And obviously I can't do it without wonderful people at the state. And although I don't have people reporting to me anymore, they continue to be my colleagues and very helpful if I have questions or want to show them things, get opinions on. Obviously the commissioner has been amazing. Irene has been amazing in her support. So if I forgot anyone, I apologize. Ajit Gopalakrishnan, who is our performance chief, he has been extremely helpful. I could go on and on. And Leslie, Leslie and Susanna Alesea, I don't have a secretary, but they've been helping me on the side. And Carla, I could go on and on. But anyways, I couldn't do it alone. I couldn't do it without all of you. So Stephen, but thank you, Lisa. I so appreciate your kind words.
Thank you, Melissa. And on that note, I know that the department is still in the process of finding finding a permanent director, I should say. And so I wonder if there are any updates on that, on where you are in the process, or where I know this is an HR function, so where the HR people are in the process.
Correct. Well, as you know, that it was posted again, and people applied, and there will be interviews at the end of the month. So those are the updates that I have. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right, so moving on here. That is the end, obviously. If any of you in the audience have questions, because like I said, this is being streamed live and it will be recorded and posted as we have been doing with all our meetings, but do not hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions. I do hope that assisted the council members with the legislation as you requested. I tried to take the words of multiple pages and kind of distill them down to be a little more palatable, and not put any kind of feeling or emotion behind them, just laying it out. This is what the expectation is. This is what we've been doing to address it. And, we'll have further talks on how we're going to be moving it forward. But anything else, any questions, comments, thoughts going around in your mind right now? Dr. Brummett?
Question, once the approved programs are released by the state, as well as the waiver, what is the ongoing role of this committee?
You will continue to consult and support the director. So having meetings like this every other month as we have it planned out for the year, but I believe that I scheduled these once a month for a while until we actually go to the every other month, thinking that your words of wisdom would be needed, right, along the way. So that would continue, and your role around really basically the center. And like I said, supporting the director, it's never ending. Now, I don't know about terms, how long you're serving on your term. That's not in the legislation, but we can have conversations about that as well. Because I know that you were all appointed by various legislators, senators, the governor, the commissioner, people way above me.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Kim.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for putting this all down on paper. For me, I'm a visual learner, so I can listen all I want, but if I see it in front of me, it's really, really helpful. So I think you said we'd be getting a copy,
yes,
at some point, but
yes.
I guess I'm actually trying to read it on my phone, which I really need a magnifying glass. I have been putting on my glasses, but it's really great. So thank you so much, because it's really helpful to people that process information visually. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Oh, good. Well, good. I'm glad that you found it helpful. Once again, it was something that you had asked that we discuss and go through. There are some things that I did not put on there. There are some required reports that have to go out from either the center or the commissioner. There's a report that's due soon. Just indicating what has been done to date around supporting districts, etc. So I didn't put everything in there. There were a few things I did not, but these were like the big, huge, major kind of things. Well, good. I'm glad that you found it beneficial. Margie?
So, yeah, this has been great and appreciate what you've done and the time you've spent to put this information together for us. And just thinking ahead and our next meeting, I know that you mentioned, do you know the date off the top of your head?
I don't, but I can look at, actually what I wanted to ask is, would you all want to meet next week on Friday? Because that's when we're anticipating releasing the programs. That's like I said, that's our goal. Our goal is next Friday. Would you all want to meet as a council to have a conversation at that point? Because I could put a meeting in. I don't know what your Fridays are like.
Depends on the time, and I'm sure that's true for everyone.
I am sure, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be great to be able to, see the list, and as a council, as you said, just ask some questions, because I'm sure people will be approaching us for better understanding, clarity, what have you. So that would probably be great. And if we can't do it next Friday, soon thereafter, I would say, again, whatever the next date is for our council meeting.
I'll pull that up right now.
Yeah, and as you're looking for that, Melissa, one of the things that I think would be helpful also is a conversation about kind of getting into some of the responsibilities of the people that will be working with you at the center, just understanding, what that's going to look like, and being able to weigh in on what we think those folks would need to have in the way of background knowledge. What are their responsibilities going to be? I know that people from the districts, Maureen, Melissa, and others, will definitely be able to describe what they think will be important. Because it's almost October, right? And we've already talked about the fact that it's difficult for people to find qualified individuals to work, right, in districts. So I just want to be thinking ahead of, just being proactive, I guess, about what we're going to need to do, especially since we got a late start, right?
So here are the meeting dates, right? Here are the meeting dates to answer those questions. Fran?
Just want to say that I think that meeting would be incredibly beneficial. Many of us are some of us are tied up on Friday afternoon, but if we could do it Friday morning or Monday would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mike, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to echo what Margie said, is that I think part of our role as for this council is to, support the center and to ensure that the center has the capacity to implement all the requirements of the legislation. So I think as a council, I know I'm interested in making sure that the center is fully staffed and has the resources and the people and the capacity to really move forward with this important work. So I add to what Margie said around keeping that on our agenda as a council to be able to publicly advocate for building the capacity and the infrastructure of the center to move forward with this work.
So what would be the line to add to the agenda, please? if we're keeping it as an agenda item. I just want to make sure I'm capturing what you're thinking.
Sure, I would say, you know, an update on timeline for fully staffing and resourcing the center.
Okay.
And again, thank you for a really, really helpful meeting today, and for your leadership, and for all your work doing this. So thank you again for all of that.
Thank you. You're all making me blush. So is there any other hand? I don't want to miss anyone. All right, so meeting Friday, Monday, those were some times thrown out there. What works for everyone, if you don't mind looking at your calendars? If Monday's better, I mean, I'm willing to move whatever I have.
I believe Monday is Rosh Hashanah, so I think that I think.
You're right.
It is. I'm out. I can't do Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
Yes.
I was assuming there would be conflicts with people. So
Is it going out the 23rd or the 30th, Melissa?
The date that we were discussing was by the 30th, September 30th. So
That's what I thought.
Actually, so I think
you're a week ahead of yourself. Look at you, Melissa.
well, no, I'm just trying to schedule a time for all of you. If you want to have a conversation, a council meeting, I want to make sure that we can put it on the books, and then I can post everything where I'm supposed to post it and be all set. So I'm sorry. So Friday.
Could I throw something out? What about
Sure.
Friday, Monday morning, October 3rd at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock?
Thumbs up.
9 o'clock would be better for me.
Okay.
Agreed.
We could do 9. No, you can't. 9 to 10, Dr. Roman.
No, I can't.
Is there a time that works for you on Monday, October 3rd?
I am out of state at a conference, so
Lovely.
probably will be in meetings all that day. The Friday suggestion in the morning worked for me. And I'm in the same meeting with Fran on that Friday afternoon. That was the 30th, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah,
September
I
30th.
could definitely do the morning as well. I'm just wondering whether it'll be out by then.
Yeah, I don't know that. We could schedule a meeting and then.
And cancel it.
Correct.
It's meant that was the date you were shooting for, right, Melissa?
Yes. Yes.
Well, let's put it on the books, and if it, like you said, if we can't do it, if we don't have the list, then we cancel it.
Move it. All right. So Friday, September 30th in the morning. What is a good time for in the morning for all of you?
9.
9.
Oh my
9.
gosh.
I'm
Are we
flexible.
actually? Wow. Everyone's saying yes. Okay. So I'll do 9 to 10. Friday, September 30th. Wow. Okay then. And thank you so much for everything you've shared today. It always makes the products better. Like you're being so adamant about the difference between the curriculum and the program and supporting for the kids and the teachers. These are really important conversations, and I so appreciate your comfort in coming forward and having these conversations. So thank you, and thank you for your continued support. We will be sending out an invitation for that time on Friday, September 30th, and appreciate all you do. So meeting is officially over. Lisa? No? Okay. All right. Well then, have a good week and see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank
You
you.
as well.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good week.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Bye.